And welcome to another business profile here on Marshfield Community Television. This is a partnership that was spurred on by the Marshfield Area Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and then MCTV got involved along with the Marshfield News-Herald and WDLB Radio as well. I'm your host, Mike Warren from WDLB, and on this edition of our Business Profile program, well, a little heaven right here on earth. In fact, a slice of heaven. We are talking today on the program with Ruth Elderbrook from A Slice of Heaven. Ruth, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I've been anxious to get in your kitchen. Here we are after, how long has it been now? A couple of years at least?
2 years, almost 2 years in our kitchen, but almost 4 years with our business.
Wow. All right. So, take us back to the beginning. People know you're a librarian by trade.
Right.
They might know you from
Right.
the UW campus here in Marshfield, right?
Right.
And have been, are you still there?
I'm still there, yeah. I've always liked to bake, and that's one of my passions. And I am the library director at UW, Marshfield Wood County. And I was involved with Food for Thought. If you remember, you were one of our chefs one year.
Oh, that's right. How could we
Yeah,
forget? I think that was the record low attendance year.
It
That's
was,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
We've tried to improve on that lately.
Okay.
But I was a chef for, let's see, we had our last 12th annual Food for Thought, and I was a chef for our daughter and her fiance now for 10 of those 12 years. And one of the first things I made, and Gary made, were cheesecakes. And Andy Keel said I was kind of known as the queen of cheesecakes around town. And for any event, you know, we do a lot of, you know, different fundraisers and things, and we're always happy to donate cheesecakes or, you know, whatever other kinds of things. And about almost 4 years ago, the librarians in the 2-year colleges, which is the UW system, were a little bit uncertain as to what our, you know, positions were going to be. And then it just happened that I was given a challenge by the assistant dean at Marathon County campus when she told me I couldn't make a luncheon for the visiting, you know, assistant deans to our campus. And she called up and she said, "Do you have your caterer's license?" And I said, "No, I don't." And she said, "Well, then you can't do this." And I decided, I guess I better get my caterer's license. So I did, and it was a fairly painless process. And I took a food course certification class and applied for a license, and within a month I had my caterer's license.
And so beyond that point then, it wasn't automatic that you were going to do your own kind of business on the side, right?
No, not automatic, no, because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I just knew I needed to get a caterer's license. I guess it was kind of providential, you know, because then the librarians all did take a 17% cut. So that gives me the opportunity then to use 1 day a week then, you know, for this business. And in the beginning, I was licensed out of the UW campus kitchen, because if you have your caterer's license, you have to be in a licensed kitchen. I can't just use my own regular kitchen in my house. And then after almost 2 years, you know, I decided we needed to take that next step. If we were going to, you know, continue to do this, and in our retirement, this is kind of what we want to do, you know, full-time at some point, then we need a kitchen. And Gary was a little bit hesitant. He said, I don't know, can we afford this? You know, is this the right thing to do? Well, I was at the point where I was willing to fix up a room in the basement, you know, just, you know, so we would have our kitchen. So I ended up visiting with Hank Zimmerman from Integrity Builders one day at the kitchen table. And I said, "Hank, I need to get a bid. Can you give me a bid for a kitchen?" And he came over a couple weeks later and had a bid and said, "Well, you know, why don't you think about it for a week?" And I just said, "You going to sharpen your pencil anymore?" And he said, "No, I really can't." I said, "Well, we're going to sign tonight then." And about 2.5 months later, he had built our kitchen.
Wow, so that's the space we're in?
Right.
Addition right onto your house?
Right, exactly.
And so that was, what, 2 years ago?
Almost 2 years ago in May, he would have finished the addition.
Wow. So
Yeah.
what was it that kind of finally put you over the top in terms of, I mean, so you get the catering license, but that's, like we said, it wasn't a given that you were going to move to this step and
No.
have your own little business on the side. What finally prompted you, or, you know, told you that, yeah, this is what we want to do? We're going to do the next step.
I think initially I was still doing more just desserts, various people, I can't even remember now, that I would be doing some desserts. And then I think it was actually the Marshfield Clinic. I started getting some business to do some physician recruitment lunches for them. And then, you know, we've lived here since 1990, and I guess we've been around enough. I've been out there, well, with Leadership Marshfield. I was in the class of 2008, and now, you know, then I joined, you know, the chamber, and I think just name recognition, people know my desserts, that was a big thing. I think part of what also got me going was before we had built our kitchen, we also were one of the sponsors for one of the Business After 5, which was out at the Meisner Farms. I think they had over 300 people there that night, and so it just kind of just keeps snowballing. And I guess people at the clinic, you know, because of doing some of those recruitment lunches or dinners, I've gotten business from them, and they just kind of
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yeah.
So you've found a little niche here in this community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really amazing because I think with the economy and everything, you know, you'd think, why would people want to pay $45 for a cheesecake? But you may not be able to get the cheesecake of the quality that we do and the other desserts that we do for 15 or 20 bucks. You know, if you're going to have a nice dessert, you want good quality desserts, and that's where the niche, you know, I think comes in. When we do any catering that we do, when you look around our kitchen, I don't know if you've heard of Longaberger Baskets, but it's a company that they make these baskets out of maple wood. They're all handmade individually and fairly expensive. And I started collecting those in 1998 or 1988, and so it's all kind of a part of the presentation. Whenever we do anything, if we're doing desserts, we have crystal cake plates or, you know, depression glass cake plates and different, you know, kinds of dishes like that. I do breakfasts for Leadership Marshfield, a couple of their breakfasts now, and we use Longaberger baskets and pottery, and that's kind of all part of our service. We've done some of our recruitment lunches and dinners, and we've taken our china or pottery and silver-plated silverware, linens, I mean the whole thing. And that's again this little niche that a lot of people are looking for and doesn't really exist in Marshfield.
Right. Well, I've found too in recent years that people really want to know, and not just with desserts, but with fresh vegetables or, you know, a lot of their foods these days, people really want to know where their food comes from. They want to know that it's quality. They want to know that it's locally produced. You know, that's a big issue with a lot of people nowadays, and I guess that carries on to desserts too. People want to know, and if they know who you are, they can probably trust the source and know that they're getting a quality product, even though they, you know, it's probably a little more. It's going to cost them a few more dollars than what you get at the, you know, the grocery store or whatever. But I think they can guarantee that local quality that I think many people are looking for, and I'm sure that's that's something you hear in the business too.
Oh, exactly, yeah. And we do other things. We also do our recitals, you know, receptions for recitals. And whenever you're celebrating any kind of an occasion, whether it's a birthday or graduation, these recitals are really special. And they've had some nice desserts there with cheesecake cupcakes or squares and, you know, different things. We've also had an opportunity to do some catering for the Chamber Chorale when they have their events. And again, part of that is because there also aren't always restaurants open on like a Sunday night, for example, when they want to have a reception after an event. People do want nice quality food, and they're willing to pay more, you know, to have that.
So this has kind of taken off on you, hasn't it? I mean, it's been, has it been, what, a little more popular than you maybe initially thought it might be?
I think so. You know, I think in the beginning I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. Our oldest son is a marketing major, and he kept saying, "Mom, you have to have a marketing plan." Well, what's a marketing plan? You know, I don't know where I'm going. I just know that I've got my, you know, almost full-time job, and Gary has his job, and we do what we can do with the time that we have. But it really has taken off, and I do the best that I can, never to turn down business if I possibly can. And sometimes it gets kind of crazy, you know, when we're heading off on a vacation and we're doing a Leadership Marshfield breakfast that morning, or you know, our daughter's getting married in July, and she says, "Mom, I hope you remember the wedding, you know, take time for the showers, you know."
And by the way, I need dessert for
Exactly,
400 people.
yes,
you know?
that's right.
Okay. Well, that's great, though. You found your little market here. And is it just, I'm guessing, just Marshfield or maybe surrounding communities?
No, surrounding communities. We've also taken, what did we take, 16 cheesecakes to a wedding in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, my goodness.
Our daughter-in-law's best friend was getting married last summer, and it was fun because they wanted to have a cheesecake bar, and people just went crazy. It was really fun watching them. It was New York-style cheesecakes, and then they had various toppings so they could top their own, and people had a lot of fun with that. We have some weddings in Stevens Point, desserts that we've done, primarily the Marshfield area. But,
So
yeah.
is it, okay, it's only desserts at this
No,
point?
everything.
Or-
We do everything from breakfast, brunch, appetizers, full dinners, yeah, everything.
Whatever they might be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, do you put a limit on, you know, the number of people, or how do you gauge, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
somebody says, I need, you know, a full dinner with dessert for, you know, 600 people,
We would do that.
yeah, that's something you could pull off even
we
right
could do
here.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, last summer at the UW, we had an opportunity to do a full day catering event for 150 scientists that were on campus, and that was coordinated out of Madison, and they started at the Marshfield Clinic the night before, and then we were privileged to host, it was a symposium, and then to host this on our campus. And that was more than we had kind of bargained for, because we started out with a hot breakfast with, you know, quiche and all different kinds of things. Went right into making a full lunch with like the eclair puff pastry and chicken salad and salads and things. Right into a dessert bar in the afternoon. And it was Gary and two other people that helped. And I really needed to have more help than that, you know. So you learn.
Trial
you know,
by fire, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah,
but
everything was on time,
Right.
but I ran them ragged, and they were threatened never to help me again.
But I mean, it's kind of a little success story here. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that sort of, you took that leap of faith, I guess, and it's all paying off, I guess.
Yeah.
It's something you love to do. And
Yeah, and I grew up in a family of 12 kids. My mother had 12 kids. We came from a farm in southern Wisconsin, and I always loved baking from the time I was a little girl. My sisters, when my parents would take off, you know, for the day, they'd come home and the table would be filled with cookies and cakes and, you know, things. So I've always loved baking and cooking, and my kids have always encouraged me. I mean, for years, my girls said, you know, Mom, why don't you start your own bakery or your business or something? And there was a fear, you know, there. It's a leap of faith,
Yeah.
you know, which I always thought, well, I've got a full-time job. How can I do this too? So it just seemed like everything just kind of fell into place, I think, you know, for
that's
us.
what weekends are for, right?
Exactly, yes.
As you're finding out. So
Yeah.
has it been? So it's been a labor of love. It hasn't been overwhelming. It hasn't been, you know, you haven't gotten into this and said, "Boy, I wish I'd never done this."
Never,
I mean,
no.
no regrets.
Sometimes Gary will get a little, you know, like, can't we ever have a day off, or don't we? But then I remind him, with every event we get, it's a blessing. You know, I mean, I really do feel blessed that the business has taken off the way it has. And when Hank Zimmerman, you know, put this addition on, he put a wonderful window, as you can see here. And when I look out the window, there's deer in the backyard, which some people might not like when they eat off your shrubs and things.
Yeah, I
you
was
know?
going to say, they eat my hostas and then come over here and get
and
dessert
then
out
they
your
do,
back window.
absolutely, yeah, you know, but I just really do. We dedicated our business to our oldest daughter, who is deceased. It'll be almost 10 years, in October, it'll be 10 years, and she loved cheesecake, was one of her favorite desserts, and so I think every cheesecake I make, or every dessert I make, I mean, it really is a labor of love. And sometimes, yeah, I do get a little bit hassled right at the end, you know, harried, you know, when we're doing some of the dinners, because your business is always on the line.
Right.
You know, you want to make sure that the food is hot, and you want to make sure you have enough. You never want to run out of, you know, of food. So sometimes you get a little bit nervous about that, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
So did you have to do any sort of, I don't know, what's the word, research maybe, into, okay, how do you plan you know, for a big meal, say a big group of people, do you have a plan B? I'm sure, did you talk to industry experts, or did you, I mean, did you just sort of feel this out on your own, or did you just sort of go in, not necessarily blind, but, you know, with an idea that we'll just kind of work this out as we go? Or, I mean, you have to have some idea of how to plan a big event, and I don't know how much education or research goes into something like this.
I think a lot of my education came from my upbringing. I mean, growing up in a family of 12 with huge events that my mother, you know, would put on. And I've put on graduation parties for 100 people and 150 people. So sometimes I've actually gone back and looked at those notes. But you can also go online, and if you're making soup and you need it for 100 people, you know, some of those measurements you can also get a lot online. I call on people that are experts too. You know, we have Glenn Keene at the UW, who is a professor of philosophy, but he also is a chef. Glenn White was at the UW at the time, and you know, is a chef, and so just kind of getting some ideas from them. I think the big thing is, you know, where do you buy your supplies? I'm always looking for the most for my money. As I just posted on Facebook last week, you know, I bought 289 packages of cream cheese and saved $267 or whatever. You know, so you're always having to kind of look at that, you know, part of it too when you're planning large events, and always kind of looking ahead.
So I'm sure there's a business plan, and there's everything behind the business, like you said, expenses and overhead and all that. You know, and you're you know, obviously money going out, money coming in, you got to plan all that out. But I guess it's a lesson for people that are out there, you know, maybe saying, well, I could do that, or, you know, it's easy. I've done big, but this is not just, you know, a hobby. This is a business. There's a plan behind it. I mean, everything you do is very intentional, I'm guessing, just as if you were a full-time kitchen.
Right. And I think right now we have a benefit of obviously both having jobs, because I think, again, a real leap of faith is starting a business downtown. I never have had a dream of owning a restaurant. I think that's, I mean, just a huge expense. I mean, you have all the expenses of the overhead. I mean, your staff, you know, paying the salaries, and then what if you don't get the business? And that would, I think, be my fear of failing. Whereas here, I'm pretty confident I'm always going to have some business. You know, I may not be doing events for 25, 50, or 150 people all the time, but I think as I keep growing, I'm pretty confident that I will continue to have business, and I don't have to worry about having that business downtown and then not being able to make the rent, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you want a weekend or two off, you know, you can. Whereas, you know, like a restaurant, you couldn't just close the doors and say, well, we're going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. We'll be open again in May or something. You know, this, you can sort of do it on your own pace.
Exactly, right.
Take the business that you can handle. And like we said, you found your niche, and so you can sort of schedule out your weeks or months, I guess, according to what you have available.
Right. And I have called on my kids. In fact, at Christmas time, our son Michael is kind of between jobs. And Gary was busy, of course, at Figgy's, and so I said to Michael, you know, I could really use the help. So he came home, and I mean, he was a blessing. I mean, without his help, there was a lot that I couldn't have gotten done, because I need the extra hand. And I have a couple of friends that I call when I do need extra help. And if you remember Melissa Lake, well, her daughter, Erin, and Laura are, I mean, they're phenomenal volunteers. Well, when they were living here, Erin and her friends, that was 3 years ago, would come over. I'd call them up and say, hey, you know, I'm doing this dessert for the Hope Lodge Gala, and I got to top 225 pieces of cheesecake, and I'm running out of time. Can you help me? And they'd come over, and they'd merrily work, you know, at it and get the job done, and then they'd take off and go. So just at some point, I know I definitely will have to think about probably hiring, especially even in retirement, we might be taking on more, you know, larger business and things that you'd have to have extra people helping.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we, you know, MACCI tells us all the time that, you know, our business growth, you know, comes from right within the community, and we see, and this is just one example. I mean, you know, who knew 4 or 5 years ago that we'd have, you know, a business like this in Marshfield, and it just takes somebody with a little bit of courage and, to kind of put themselves out there, and now you're talking about potentially expanding. Not that it's for sure written in stone, but just another example of somebody adding to the local economy right here, and it's kind of neat to see some of one of those success stories.
I think one thing for me to be able to do this, I have to be organized. Like Gary sometimes, he'll say, I didn't take the order, so I'm not sure what's ahead of us. I take lots of notes. I'm constantly writing down, what we have ahead of us, who we have to do, what we have to do, and constantly updating and revising my biggest fear is, oh my gosh, what if I forgot an event? That would be just awful.
Yeah.
So trying to be organized, and sometimes I get up at 4 a.m. and I'm in my kitchen baking because I can't sleep, or so that's the beauty of having something attached to my house too.
Right, yeah, it's right on the house. It's a beautiful setting. We're in it, and it's only, a couple of years old, like you said, right?
Right.
The addition.
Yep.
So I think it's probably worked out great for you. Probably.
In fact, we've outgrown it.
Really?
We have, because when we started it 2 years ago, we weren't doing as much of full catering. So now, because we are, and now we've invested in chafing dishes and all kinds of other supplies and products, because now, one event that we've really enjoyed is the cultural fair, and we serve cheesecake squares, gourmet cheesecake squares, and gourmet cupcakes. And with any event that you do, you don't always think about the extra things you need to bring along, like what if somebody wants to buy 4, or they don't want to eat it there, but they want to take it home with them. So just investing in extra supplies like that all takes room.
Yeah, to-go boxes or little whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
okay.
we should have made our kitchen bigger.
I always hear that. Businesses always say that. It's like, well, we should have added on an extra 1,000 square feet or whatever the case might be. So you're already finding that that's, I guess, a sign of success.
It is, yes. That's a good thing.
All right.
Yep.
All right, we're going to get into the kitchen, I understand, right?
Yes,
we're going
we
to
are.
roll. Oh, I can't wait. All right, and I'm going to find out what a chafing dish is because I have no idea. So I'm going to learn some stuff here. A Slice of Heaven is the business. Ruth Elderbrook is the owner and operator on this business profile segment. We're glad you're with us. And stay with us. We're going to find out more about the business, and we're going to get our hands dirty. We're going to roll up our sleeves and get into the kitchen a little bit and maybe teach you how to make something. So stay with us.
You're on your way to meet up with friends, but you can't seem to get anywhere quickly. You don't want your friends to be annoyed, so you text. You're on your way. Five seconds is the average time your eyes are off the road while texting while driving. Make sure you get where you're going.
Welcome back to our business profile segment here on MCTV. We are talking with Ruth Elderbrook from A Slice of Heaven. And again, this program is a presentation of MACCI, the Marshfield News-Herald, WDLB Radio, and Marshfield Community Television. Ruth, okay, we mentioned before the break, I had no idea what a chafing dish was.
Right.
Now I know. It's
Yep.
the
You
silver
thought
bowl
it
with
was-
fire underneath.
Exactly. You thought it was just something that kept your food hot,
I
and
had
then
no
you
idea
had
it had
to
a
blow
name.
out those candles.
Exactly.
Yes. And
Okay, so you have some examples.
yeah, so there are all different kinds of chafers, and there's all different kinds of prices too. So I have a cheaper chafer. So this is a large chafer. This is called a full chafer. So this could have, your turkey, chicken, whatever. So a full pan, and we would maybe use this if we were serving 12 to 15 people, for something. If we wanted to have a couple of vegetables, like sometimes we'll have chicken Parisienne, and then we'll have wild rice, and then we'll also have asparagus. So then we use our half chafer, so that we can put
So you can do two of those.
Two of those.
Okay.
And we own 2 of these. And then to keep them warm, as most people probably know, these are the the sternal cans, and
So
then they
that
go
has a
in
name
these.
too.
Yeah, these are sternal cans, and then they go into these little cups that go in here,
Huh.
and then and they'll last 2 to 4 hours depending on what size you get.
Okay.
And I kind of just touched a little bit on some of the things that we do, like weddings. We do primarily desserts at weddings, but some of our events we do the full catering, as I said. So when we're having the meat, rice, a potato maybe, and then your vegetable, then we also have some other round chafing dishes.
So they come in all shapes and sizes.
Shapes and sizes, exactly. So these are
Okay.
some of the, and again, it's a nice presentation. Initially, we didn't have the chafing dishes, and if you want to, do full catering, it's hard to do that. Sometimes if you're dropping a meal off at 5 o'clock and they're not going to be eating until 6, then you again need to make sure that food is going to stay hot. So then
These are a must-have. So,
Right.
like you mentioned, weddings. I mean,
Right.
That's a big part of your. Have you done many of those yet?
We've done a lot of desserts for weddings. We have several wedding desserts bars coming up. People really enjoy the cheesecake, so we've done several weddings with 9 to 15 cheesecakes. Cheesecake cupcakes. We've had several weddings where people really enjoy a nice cupcake. It's a nice variety from having the traditional wedding cake. A lot of the brides today don't want the traditional wedding cake, and it gives their guests an opportunity to try different things. We can do cheesecake cupcakes, red velvet chocolate. Our son's personal favorite was a chocolate with a cream cheese, chocolate chip filling, topped with either cream cheese frosting or fudge frosting. And we do, whatever. Death by Chocolate ended up getting us a wedding reception because we had gone to an event and friends of a bride getting married tasted this Death by Chocolate, or Oreo, Death by Chocolate with Oreos on it, and that was the selling feature there. So it's just a lot of fun. We have a couple weddings coming up that we're doing just a big dessert bar with lots of different kinds of bars and cheesecake squares, mini cheesecake squares. So it's just kind of fun, and it's really fun to watch people that maybe aren't used to having desserts, or maybe they didn't grow up with a mom or sisters, or maybe they didn't bake themselves. So that's a big part of our business.
You must love that part of it, because you never know what you're going to be making. I mean, it's
Right.
literally something different all the time. Even
Right.
though you might make the same thing, they might want it presented differently,
Exactly.
or a little different twist to it. You never know what you're going to be doing.
No, and even if you go, we also have a website, which we finally launched last October. And if you go to our website, it's sliceofheavenwi.com. And we have all of our menus we do everything from breakfast to, brunches, appetizers, full dinners, cakes, pies, a holiday menu. We do lots of trays for people at the holiday, time. And within those menus, especially like the cheesecakes, they might see this whole big array of cheesecakes, but they might, like you said, have a top differently. And, so whatever they want, we, try to accommodate as much as we can.
All it takes is one taste of your cheesecake, and I'm guaranteeing people they're going to be hooked.
And you're going to get to taste cheesecake later tonight.
Perfect.
Too.
So are we gonna go into the kitchen?
Yeah,
I
we're
put
going to
my
the kitchen.
apron on.
Yes.
I don't know if you noticed that, but
This
I found
is-
one on the hook, and
Yes.
Gary said you're gonna need this because
And this is our little logo, A Slice
love
of
it.
Heaven, and it has catering by Ruth. This is my Food for Thought apron. I'm still very partial to Food for Thought since I'm at the UW, and that
a
was
big fundraiser.
big fundraiser, big part of my life.
and they still do it,
And they
right?
still do, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to head to my kitchen, and we are going to make tiramisu. And do you know what tiramisu is?
No idea.
That's an Italian dessert.
Ah, yes.
And
Now
it's
I'm
filled with lady fingers and lots of good stuff. Almost non-caloric.
It should be
really.
illegal, right?
Yes.
Okay,
should
let's
be.
go.
Yes, okay. When we built our kitchen, some of the specifications in a licensed kitchen are several sinks. We have a triple sink here. Some kitchens actually have to have 7 sinks if it's a restaurant, because of special sinks for vegetables and all this stuff. Another special sink you have to have in a restaurant would be a separate hand washing sink. So I'm going to let you wash your hands before you get started.
Good idea.
And what we're going to make, as I said tonight, it's tiramisu. And we're actually making this for a fundraiser for tomorrow night for St. John the Baptist. Their youth is trying to make some money to go to visit the Pope next year in 2014. So we are donating tiramisu for a group of about 80 people tomorrow night.
Wow.
Okay?
All right. So jump in.
So
I
you
get
can
to use
jump
the
right
creamy
in
pumpkin.
there. Yes.
All right. So where do we start?
Okay, so I'm going to let you start cracking eggs.
Ooh.
Okay, so we are going to use our little egg separator.
All right.
Have you ever worked with an egg separator before?
I think.
Okay.
What does that separate the
Separate the egg,
the egg white
from the yolk.
from the yolk?
Okay.
And why do we want to do that?
Because you're going to be beating up the egg whites first, and then you're going to be beating the egg yolks after that. And do you remember a couple of years ago when Taste of Home came to Marshfield?
Taste of Home.
You know, the cookbook? Mm-mm. And they came, I think it was the Buyer's Guide was one of the big sources that got them here.
Okay.
And one thing I took home with me from what I learned was you can crack 2 eggs and only one will ever actually crack. I mean, to
You
break.
crack them against
Crack
one
them
another.
And only one.
will break.
So only one will break.
Wow.
And I have cracked a lot of eggs. And
And you just filter that right out.
I also learned sometimes it's harder than others
There
to
we
get
go.
out. But okay. Are you ready to give it a shot?
So I want to crack an egg against another egg and put it right into the separator.
Right.
Is there a magic spot on the egg that I
No.
want to hit? Or just, so obviously that's the one that cracked, right? All right. Now I want to separate that out. Here, I'm going to set the other egg down. And it should just
Should pop out just like
pop
that.
out. And there we go.
And we're actually making a double recipe here. So the first thing we're going to do is beat up the egg whites until they come to, it says kind of hard, stiff peaks, and then we're going to add sugar.
Okay. Okay, so now you want to bring us up to speed on where we're at?
Okay, so we have the egg whites beaten, and you beat up the egg yolks with 1/4 cup of sugar.
Right.
And now we're adding in 4 8-ounce packages of mascarpone cheese. And then we're going to add 1/4 cup of Kahlua. Out, they're going to drip. Okay, now we're going to start
Putting it all together.
putting it all together.
Okay.
I'm sure there has to be a special term for putting it all together that's more elegant.
Yes,
we're going to assemble. Yes.
Okay.
Going to assemble.
You want this in
Okay.
the water?
That can go in the water. Oh, and Gary, you want to bring that big bowl? Okay, so we put this big bowl of mascarpone egg yolk mixture in here, And because we're doing a double recipe, which is actually going to go into this big pan, that's why I'm using this large bowl to mix everything. So the first thing you're going to incorporate are the egg whites into this, okay? And you're going to fold it in. Do you know what folding means?
I think so.
Yeah, it's not really stirring.
Right.
Because if you stir it, it probably liquefies and it stirs
And we don't want it to
liquefy. And we don't
liquefy.
want it to liquefy too much. No.
Because then we have to start over, and in business you can't afford to start over.
No, not with this dessert anyway. Okay, so you can start folding this.
Okay, you want me to, so I want to fold.
So you kind of go like from the bottom and then just kind of roll it over.
Like this. Right? Am I doing that right?
Yep.
And I just keep doing
Just
that
kind of
until...
keep doing that until the egg whites are all incorporated into the egg yolk mixture.
Oh, and so you can't even tell it's there.
Right.
Okay.
And that's good. Okay.
We look good now?
That looks great. Okay, first thing now we're going to do is put the lady fingers in this pan.
So we line the whole bottom
Line the whole
of
bottom.
the pan.
The pan with lady fingers.
Oh, look at
We're
that.
going to put them upside down like that.
Okay. And we need, there you go, here, I'll do these. So you want them split apart?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and then what you're going to do next is, Gary decided that it was a little tougher just using a spoon, so he discovered that if you use this little cookie scoop, because then you need to get, and this is espresso, which we made in advance.
Okay.
And that's what also gives it the name tiramisu, because the name means pick-me-up.
Ah, that is where the espresso would come
That's
in.
where the espresso comes in.
Okay, so you want me to,
So you just need to cover them, but you don't have to, have it swimming, but they just need to be covered.
they need to be covered, okay?
Perfect.
Great, okay.
Okay.
Next step is you're going to cover this layer with this mixture.
We're going to cover
gonna-
this whole layer.
this whole
How
layer.
thick are you
So
going?
you're going to go about that thick so we don't run out. And we're going to have 3 layers of this.
Oh,
Okay.
that's why you want, okay, so,
So you're going to need 3 layers, like so.
all right. You want me to do this one?
Sure.
Okay.
That's why you're here, right? So you can work.
I want to learn.
Yeah. Right.
So now this is,
Okay.
now we're sprinkling it with cocoa.
Cocoa.
And this is a
You're gonna
no-bake
cover it.
recipe.
This is no bake.
Okay.
Okay, if you're going to learn how to do this, you need to have a
Oh, you want me to,
cocoa.
okay.
Sure. This is actually a pampered chef, if I can name names. It's a little pampered chef.
So I'm just
Once you
sprinkling,
want- so you
I'm
want
being pretty...
Pretty liberal, you
oh.
want it covered.
So you want it covered, you
Right,
don't want,
yep.
okay. So you want, this is really gonna pop with the flavoring? or
Yes.
what- Okay.
The cocoa really makes it too. We repeat.
And then we,
Like
oh,
we
okay,
did.
now we have more of
Yep.
these,
Yep.
what were these
Wanna-
called again? Lady
These are
fingers?
lady fingers. People, see this and they want, to make this dessert. They might go to Festival Foods and say, I need lady fingers. And they might take you to the cookie aisle, and they also have lady fingers there, but it's more of like a hard cookie. And that's not what you want. You need
You want the-
soft
okay.
lady fingers. Yep. You need another layer of
Now I need the espresso.
espresso. Okay, next layer.
Now we need another layer of the...
So now you're going to use half of that because you're just going to have one more layer of lady fingers.
So we're really gonna go to town on this?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, we
yeah,
can get...
we are right?
Correct.
Just, okay.
let's just fill in that space there.
And then
Is
you're
that
gonna,
good?
That's good. And then you're going to have one more
Now we're going to soak
topping
again?
of soak again.
Okay.
Almost done.
And then you said this has to set up basically
So
overnight
it'll set
or
up over-
24 hours
yeah,
or what?
So it'll set up overnight.
Here, you
get
scrape
all of
that
that
off
off.
and smooth it out. And now it just basically sets up
Yep,
overnight.
and what I do is then it will also be topped with one more topping of cocoa.
Okay.
But because if it sits overnight, then that nice chocolate, looking cocoa is going to be light brown by
So you want
morning.
to add that in the morning?
Yep.
Okay.
Or tomorrow before we're ready to serve
Right
it.
before you serve it?
Yes.
Okay. And that's basically
And that's
tiramisu.
That is tiramisu. I love dessert when I'm eating like just dessert with a cup of coffee.
Right.
I think if I have a big meal, I never really like dessert because you're too full and you can't really savor all of those wonderful flavors that you're going to miss out on by eating it when you're full.
So that's our dish.
That's it.
And that will serve
30 people.
30 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell you what, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up our show with Ruth Elderbrook from A Slice of Heaven in just a moment. Looks delicious. Well,
Know what?
What?
Since I got adopted, I've learned a lot about these humans.
I know. I mean, check out these two. It's Flirt City over here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks like my human is definitely into your human.
Oh, look! I think she's getting his number.
Nice.
Your human's got some sweet moves.
Takes after his dog. Oh, look, they're doing that thing where they put their arms around each other.
She kicked up a leg. It's like in the movies.
That's awesome. Looks like we're gonna be hanging out a little bit more.
welcome back to our program. We're talking about A Slice of Heaven with Ruth Elderbrook on this edition of Business Profile. Well, Ruth, we had a great time in your kitchen making
So
tiramisu.
are you going to make tiramisu when you go home for Kelly?
I might. I know where your spare key for the kitchen is.
That's
I'll
true.
just sneak in and
Okay.
make it overnight, and it's got a setup. So what
It
we
has
just
set
did
up.
has a setup overnight.
Right.
That's the important part.
That's the important part.
All right, so A Slice of Heaven. You've been around for what? I think we
Almost
said
4 years.
4 years now.
Yep,
Going great,
it's going great.
and you love it.
Yeah, love it, and hope to continue to do this until I'm way into my elderly years. I don't even want to say, because as long as I can keep baking and walking and cooking, I'll be in my kitchen.
Perfect. So it's a labor of love, as we said. What is the easiest way for somebody to get information or to get in contact with you? Because obviously a part of the show is we want to let people know you're here in Marshfield, and even from a regional area, they can contact you. How do they do that?
Sure. Go to my website and just, type in www.sliceofheavenwi.com. If you Google that, it'll pop right up. Sometimes if you just type in sliceofheaven.com, you might get Rhode Island. So anyway, but
There are other, that's why the WI.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
My phone numbers are there. I have a cell phone number and home phone number that are on my website. And there's an info at sliceofheavenwi.com. So if they have any questions or want to place an order online, just by emailing back and forth, we can do that. As far as like events, notice that I might need, if they want a pan of bars, they want a dessert, and they forgot, oh my gosh, can I get this tomorrow? I very often do that. So just give me a call and we'll do whatever we can to get you what you need in a couple of days. For a wedding, as much notice, obviously, months in advance would be good. For recitals, other events, First Communions are coming up, maybe a month, notice would be good. But again, just email me or call me at those numbers.
And they'll put their order in on the email, or like you said,
They
your phone
can.
numbers are there?
Right.
and as much notice as possible, and you'll take it from there.
I'll take it from there, and we deliver, or people can pick up, whatever we can do. If they want a full service catering for their event, we'll do that too. So we work with them. It's individualized, whatever they need.
All right. Well, Ruth, thanks for your time. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
a little success that you found right here, a little niche, and hopefully you can keep it going for many, many years.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. That's Ruth Elderbrook from A Slice of Heaven. We want to thank Ruth and Gary for opening up their kitchen and their home to us. We want to thank you for watching. This partnership is made possible through the Marshfield Area Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We want to thank them, and also the Marshfield News-Herald, WDLB Radio, and Marshfield Community Television. I'm your host, Mike Warren. Thanks for watching Business Profile. We'll see you next time right here.